They were supposed to kill him. The crowd gathered at Baelor's Sept never questioned it. Heads had rolled before. Lord Stark's was simply next in line. But something unexpected happened. Mercy. As the executioner raised ice high in the air, a voice boomed from the edge of the crowd. "Stop this madness!" shouted someone cloaked in the crimson of the Red Keep's guards, but the face beneath the helm belonged to Sir Barristan Selmy. The old knight had been watching in silence. For too long. That morning he had made his choice. With a handful of loyal gold cloaks at his back, Barristan defied Joffrey's order. Chaos erupted. Swords were drawn, screams echoed. In the madness, ice never fell. Ned Stark, dazed, bloodied and shackled, was yanked off the platform and dragged away by men who whispered of honor instead of orders. Through alleyways and secret tunnels beneath King's Landing, he was taken to a forgotten cellar where Varys waited, his fingers steepled, his eyes unreadable. "You're lucky some men still believe in honor," the spider said. "But make no mistake, Lord Stark, this survival is not a blessing. Not yet." Ned didn't speak. His body ached, and grief clouded his heart. He had betrayed everything: his friend Robert's memory, his own name, even his daughter's trust, all to protect Sansa and Arya, and still it had nearly cost him everything. That night, news spread that the execution was stopped by traitors. Joffrey screamed vengeance. Cersei quietly plotted. And Littlefinger? He smiled wider than he had in weeks. Ned's rescue had set fire to a fragile realm. In the north, Robb Stark heard a raven not of death, but defiance. His father was alive and possibly in hiding. The lords of the north, already rallying to avenge him, now had a new cause: liberation. The North remembers meant something again, but Ned knew he could not simply return. His presence made him a symbol and a threat. Varys warned that war was coming faster now. Stannis Baratheon had already begun gathering ships. Renly wore a crown in Highgarden, and in the shadows darker forces stirred. Still, Ned's heart wasn't in war. It was in saving his daughters. Arya had vanished after the Sept. Some said she was caught by gold cloaks, others that she had slipped into the alleys like a ghost. And Sansa was still in the clutches of the Lannisters, so he made a vow not to lead an army, not to raise banners, but to undo the very game he had once refused to play. But the game had changed him. Death had brushed past him and left a scar deeper than any blade. "You won't win with honor alone," Varys warned him on the third day. "You'll need deception, fear, and blood." Ned met his gaze, steel in his eyes. "Then I'll use them, but not like them." Outside the capital, rumors whispered of a faceless man with the sword of ice. In the shadows of Flea Bottom, knives whispered of a northern ghost. And in the halls of the Red Keep, Cersei began to fear something she'd never imagined before: that Ned Stark might come back, and he wouldn't be merciful this time. They were supposed to kill him. The Sept of Baelor groaned with bodies, thousands crammed shoulder to shoulder like vultures over a battlefield, waiting for blood to fall. The sun beat down, sharp and merciless, and silence blanketed the square. Like a burial shroud, Lord Eddard Stark stood on the steps, knees bent, hands bound, sweat slick on his brow. His grey eyes scanned the crowd once, briefly, stopping on the lone figure of his daughter Sansa, red-eyed, broken, mouthing silent prayers. Joffrey Baratheon, boy king, monster child, grinned from the Iron Throne's shadow like a cat about to swat the life from a crippled mouse. "Bring me his head," he had shouted, and the world seemed to freeze in that moment. Even the gods may have turned their faces. Ned Stark never feared death. He'd made peace with it many times over, in war, in winter, in the still moments, by the fire. But what chilled him to the marrow now wasn't death. It was failure. He had bent the knee, lied. shamed himself in front of the seven, all to save his daughters. And it hadn't mattered. The executioner stepped forward, Sir Ilan Payne, silent and expressionless, as if he were just part of the blade itself. Ice gleamed in his hands, the great sword of House Stark, now a tool of Lannister cruelty. Ned bowed his head. But the sword never fell. A sharp voice rang out, not a scream, not a cry, but a command, "Hold!" The crowd stirred, confused. Whispers rippled. The Goldcloaks tensed. On the platform, Sir Elin halted mid-swing, blinking once behind his empty eyes. From the crowd, a contingent of Lannister guards shoved forward, red cloaks swaying, but there was something wrong with them. Their boots were dusted in northern mud, their helmets mismatched, their formation too disciplined. At their head stood an old knight in white, Sir Barristan Selmy, dismissed from the Kingsguard, dishonored but not broken. He raised his voice. Again, blade drawn. "This is not justice. This is murder, and I will not stand idle while honor dies." Chaos shattered the silence. Swords were drawn, Goldcloaks fought Goldcloaks. The crowd erupted in screams and stampedes. Somewhere, Sansa shrieked. Ned's legs buckled as men rushed the platform. Someone cut his bonds. Rough hands lifted him, half carrying, half dragging him into the shadowed side of the sept. Blades flashed in every direction. Blood hit the cobblestones. He didn't know if the blood was his. Down corridors slick with moss and the rot of forgotten centuries, they ran. Through trapdoors and catacombs long hidden, into darkness where only whispers knew their way. Ned drifted in and out of consciousness, the pain in his head pounding like a drum. When he came to, he was in a candlelit chamber. The room smelled of parchment and secrets. Sitting across from him was a bald, soft-faced man in flowing robes, Varys. "Well," the spider said, folding his fingers, "that was close." Ned groaned. His wrists burned. "Why?" "Because," Varys said with a tired smile, "you are more useful alive, to the realm at least." Outside, the bells rang. The city buzzed with rumors. Some said Ned had escaped by sorcery. Others swore the gods themselves had intervened. Joffrey raged, his tantrums shaking the red. Keep Cersei, calmer but far more dangerous, began whispering to the shadows. Littlefinger smiled. The news reached the north by Raven. At River Run, Robb Stark stood by the fireplace, knuckles white around the message. "Alive?" he whispered. The great lords of the north had already begun their march south, banners raised not in rebellion, but in vengeance. Now they had hope, and hope was far more dangerous than rage, but Varys in the dark of King's Landing urged caution. "You cannot return yet," he told Ned. "Your presence would ignite war. The boy king will demand your head again. Cersei will find ways more subtle. You are a symbol now, one that could break the realm apart." "I don't care for their realm," Ned growled. "I care for my daughters." Arya had vanished after the failed execution, last seen somewhere near the sept. Sansa remained trapped in the Red Keep, surrounded by lions. Ned's heart ached for them, guilt and fury warring inside him. But something inside Eddard Stark had shifted. He had seen too much, played their game and lost. Now survival meant more than honor, it meant change. And for the first time in his life, he was willing to play dirty. He looked Varys in the eye. "Then teach me," he said quietly. "Teach me how to beat them at their own game." The first rule Varys taught him was silence. "You will not send ravens," he said, "not even to the north. The moment anyone knows you live beyond this room, your daughters die." Ned clenched his fists, his knuckles cracked like breaking branches. "You ask me to sit idle while my child is held captive?" "No," Varys replied softly. "I ask you to move smarter than the men who put you on that platform." The Spider's network of spies had already begun their quiet work. Arya had escaped the chaos at Baelor's Sept, slipping away like mist through the city's underbelly. She had help, some whisper said, from a dancing master with quick feet and a quicker blade, but her trail was faint, scattered among orphan children and nameless urchins of Flea Bottom. Sansa, though, was a different matter. She was still in the lion's den, still playing the obedient lady to a boy-king drunk on cruelty. Her letters home had changed, more careful, colder. Ned saw it even in the falsified versions Varys had intercepted. She was learning to survive. The only way she could, by becoming someone else. It tore at his heart. Every night Ned replayed the moment he bent the knee, that humiliating lie. How he had looked into the eyes of a mad child and begged for mercy, not for himself, but for the ones he'd failed to protect. But that mercy had not spared him. It had only delayed what needed to come. So he listened to Varys. He healed. He waited. And in that stillness, something inside him hardened. By the end of the first month he had changed. The old Eddard Stark, the quiet warden of the North, the man who trusted oaths and judged with a clean conscience, was gone. In his place stood a shadow, a ghost with a northern voice and southern cunning. They gave him a disguise, dyed his hair, trimmed his beard. He moved through the streets of King's Landing with a merchant's swagger and a sellsword's sharp eyes. No one looked twice. He slept in brothels, in cellars, in rat-infested corners of the city he would once have considered beneath him. He listened, he watched, and he learned. From the lips of whores and beggars, from drunken Lannister guards who spilled secrets for coin, from merchants bribed to keep quiet, he built a map of the rot in the Red Keep. And slowly, piece by piece, he began to pull a thread. His first target was Sir Meryn Trant. The Kingsguard knight had escorted Sansa back and forth across the castle grounds, always with a sneer and a backhand if she misstepped. He was not just cruel. He was careless. He drank too much, wandered into alleys he shouldn't have. One night, in the dark behind a tavern, Sir Meryn met a man he didn't recognize, a man who moved like a soldier, but spoke like a merchant. Sir Meryn never left that alley. The next day, the court buzzed with rumors of a cutthroat in the streets. But Ned Stark wasn't just cutting throats. He was sending messages, silent, sharp messages to the men who thought him broken. Varys did not approve. "You risk exposure," he warned. "Every step you take, you endanger the realm." "I'm not trying to save the realm," Ned said. "I'm trying to break the people who broke my family." Even so, he knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed allies, ones that wouldn't sell him for coin or crown. That's when he approached Barristan Selmy again. The old knight had vanished after the rescue. Rumor said he fled to Essos or joined a mercenary company. But Varys found him in a rundown temple outside the city, tending to the sick and living as a ghost. Ned came to him wearing rags and a hood, but Barristan knew him at once. "I never thought I'd see you breathing again," he said. "And I never thought I'd ask you for help," Ned replied. Barristan hesitated. "You remember what you said to me when I stood beside Robert after the rebellion, when we cleaned the blood from the throne room?" Ned nodded. "I said we followed the wrong men." Barristan looked him over. "And are you following the right ones now?" "No," Ned said. "Now I follow no one. But I'll do whatever it takes to bring them down." The knight stared at him long, then finally nodded. "Then we fight!" From the shadows. From that moment, a silent war began. In the Red Keep, ravens vanished. Guard patrols shifted without reason. Cersei's spies found themselves followed. Joffrey's advisors began dying in their sleep. The Queen Regent grew paranoid, crueler, even more volatile. She blamed Tyrion, then Varys, then even Pycelle. But the blade behind the chaos wore no name and bore no banner. He was just a ghost, with a wolf's eyes. Far to the north, Robb's war moved faster now. With word, whispered, never confirmed, that his father lived, the young wolf burned with new fury. River Run had been secured. Jaime Lannister had been captured, and now every raven from the south only added fuel to the North's fury. But Ned Stark knew the real war wasn't on battlefields. It was in the minds of lords, in the whispers behind closed doors, in secrets and shadows, and he was learning to master both. In the deepest corridors of the Red Keep, behind stone walls that had seen kings come and go, Queen Cersei Lannister poured herself a goblet of wine and stared at the empty space on the small council. Sir Meryn's death had rattled her. Not because he was valuable, he wasn't, but because he had been hers, loyal, brutish, and most importantly, expendable. Now he was just another name whispered with fear in the castle halls. "Rats in the walls," she muttered, pacing. "Not rats," Tyrion corrected, lounging with a sour smile. "Wolves." Cersei narrowed her eyes. "You think he's alive?" "I think the bodies piling up suggest someone very angry and very precise is operating inside our city. And between us, dear sister, you aren't very good at creating loyal enemies." Cersei hated that he wasn't wrong. She had burned too many bridges, ruled too hard with fear and manipulation. The boy King Joffrey did not help matters. He was impatient, reckless, dangerous even to his own court. And now his mother feared she was losing control. "Varys has gone quiet," she said. Tyrion nodded, which is usually the loudest warning. Meanwhile, down in the underbelly of King's Landing, Varys and Ned sat across a candlelit map of the city. Pins marked Lannister strongholds, loyalist safe houses, black cells, brothels and bakeries that passed rumors with more accuracy than the Citadel. "This is how they rule," Varys whispered, "not with banners, but with information, with silence, with fear." Ned studied it all, absorbing every name, every place. There were moments where the old Ned tried to claw back up, urging mercy, justice, fairness, but he buried them. His daughters were still prisoners, no matter what mask Sansa wore. "She wrote another letter," Varys said, pulling a scroll from his sleeve. Ned's hands shook as he read it, carefully written in perfect etiquette, praising Joffrey's mercy, expressing regret over her father's treason. But her final line betrayed everything. "The snow falls thick in Winterfell, and the wolves are always watching." She was alive, playing the game, sending him messages only he would understand. And she had seen the truth of the South. Now it had changed her too. "She's becoming like them," Ned whispered bitterly. "No," Varys said, "she's surviving, like you." Ned didn't sleep that night. Instead, he found himself outside the city walls by dawn, meeting Barristan Selmy at a small ridge overlooking a forest trail. With them was a third man, dark-skinned, eyes sharp, expression calm. "Gendry," Ned said. The boy nodded once. "Varys said you needed someone who could make things quiet, and someone who hated gold lions." The bastard son of Robert Baratheon had grown in the shadows, smarter than his father had ever been, sharper with steel and silence. And he had reasons to hate the Lannisters as much as Ned did. Together, the three of them formed a plan. It started with Maester Pycelle. The old man had been feeding secrets to the Queen since Robert's death. He was slow now, frail, predictable. They found him in his chambers, drunk on sweet wine, and asleep by a candle that had nearly burned down to the wax. He didn't die that night, but when he woke, every letter he'd stored for Cersei was gone. Next came Lord Baelish. Petter had grown cautious, sensing the tension thickening in the capital. He'd begun hiding his wealth, moving coin to Braavos, using proxies for his brothels and spies, but even his shadows couldn't see Ned coming. They cornered him in a tunnel beneath the Red Keep, where secrets once passed between lovers and assassins. Baelish laughed at first. "So it's true," he said. "I always knew you were too stubborn to die like a good man." Ned pressed him to the wall, dagger at his throat. "You betrayed me," Ned growled. "You left me in that throne room with false promises and a knife behind your back." Baelish didn't deny it. "I did what I had to, and so are you now. Give me the name of every man Cersei uses, every coin trail, every rat she feeds." Peter hesitated. "And if I refuse?" Ned leaned closer. "You won't live long enough to regret it." In the end, Littlefinger gave him enough to burn half the Queen's web. A dozen of her informants disappeared that week. A key banker in Braavos was exposed as her gold funnel. A sellsword company, meant to reinforce King's Landing, was ambushed by bandits outside Duskendale. The Queen fumed. Her paranoia deepened. She struck out blindly, accusing her own council, threatening her own blood. She started losing what little trust she had left among the lords of the court, and Sansa watched. She watched as Joffrey's cruelty grew erratic, as her mother-in-law paced with trembling hands, as whispers of the wolf's revenge passed from chambermaid to servant boy to lord. And she smiled, just a little, when she heard that another Lannister guard had vanished in the night. She knew what was coming. She knew her father was alive. And so she began preparing for her own part in the war. The North had heard whispers, and whispers were enough. By the time word reached Robb Stark that his father might still live, the young wolf was already knee-deep in mud and Lannister blood. River Run had been claimed. Jaime Lannister sat in chains, but hope had begun to reshape the war. "He's alive," Grey Wind growled before the men ever spoke it aloud. Robb could see it in the way the direwolf paced, restless and alert, as if the bond between them was no longer dulled by grief. As if somewhere far away, Eddard Stark still breathed. But hope was a weapon too. Robb gathered his bannermen. Gretchen, Umber, Lord Karstark, Mage Mormont, even Theon, still pretending loyalty while watching every northern face like a man unsure of his own skin. "If my father lives," Robb said before the firelight, "then the war is not just for vengeance. It is for deliverance. For the Stark name, for the North to rise and pull him from the chains of southern treachery." They roared with him that night, but not all were loyal in the dark. One of Tywin Lannister's spies heard the news and rode hard for Harrenhal. The old lion received the message with a grim smile. "He's alive," Tywin muttered, stroking his jaw. "That complicates things." "What should we do?" asked one of his captains. Tywin's eyes gleamed. "Draw them in. Make the boy march harder. Let him think he can break us. And then we remind him why we've ruled Westeros through fire and coin for generations." Back in King's Landing, Cersei's panic had turned surgical. She arrested 3 minor nobles from houses loosely aligned with the North. One was hanged, without trial. Another was flayed in a locked cell. She wanted names, confirmation, confessions, but all she found were dying men who knew less than she did. Tyrion watched it all from the shadows. He had grown quieter, more calculating. "If he is alive," he told Bronn in a hushed corner of the Tower of the Hand, "then he's not the man who marched into this city with clean boots and blind loyalty. He's changed." Bronn grinned. "Maybe he's more dangerous now." "I'd count on it." But the one who changed most was Sansa. She had played the perfect role for so long. Demure, graceful, obedient. Joffrey's delicate. Bird, dancing for the pleasure of lions. But the cracks had begun to show. One morning she slipped a note into a page's pocket. It seemed harmless, a request for a specific ribbon for her hair, but the boy never returned. His body was found in a water barrel 3 days later. No wound, just wide eyes and silence. Sansa never asked about him. She simply braided her hair a different way. The servants started whispering, not of the queen-to-be, but of the ice-eyed girl who smiled less and listened more. The girl who asked strange questions, who memorized guard rotations, who never slept through the night. She knew Ned was alive. She could feel it, and she knew He had begun his vengeance, so she played her part in the story. At dinner, she poured extra wine into Joffrey's cup, just enough to make his mood swing faster. When he screamed at her for her clumsy embroidery, she cried on cue. But later, when he fell asleep with his mouth open, snoring and wine-stained, she tested the door to his chambers. It was locked. She started counting keys, identifying guards. She wasn't a warrior, but she was her mother's daughter, and her father's child. One night, she left a trail of petals through her room, as if rehearsing for some romantic game. But at the end of the trail, tucked beneath a loose stone, she placed a small note. The lion sleeps, the wolf waits. East, tower. 1 hour past moonrise, and she waited. In the ruins of a burned tower just outside the walls, Ned met her in the dark. He didn't speak when she appeared, hooded, cloak wrapped tightly, face pale but alive. She froze when she saw him. For a moment, time broke. "Father?" she whispered. He moved fast and quiet, pulled her into his arms, held her so tightly, she thought her ribs would snap. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I should have protected you better." Sansa didn't cry. She just nodded. "You'll come for Arya?" she asked. "I will," he said. She handed him a page torn from one of her sewn books, a crude map, guard schedules, hidden passages, every piece of information a daughter could offer her father. "You'll need to be someone else to survive," he warned. "I already am," she replied, her voice cold. When she left, neither looked back. And Ned burned the map into memory, then burned the page. He returned to the crypts below the city, where Varys and Barristan waited. He said only one thing: "It's time to take her." "Her?" Barristan blinked. "Arya?" Ned's eyes were like stone. "Cersei." Varys's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You mean to kill the queen?" "No," Ned growled. "I mean to take her. Not for ransom, not for leverage. I want her to know what it means to fear the dark." There was silence. Even Barristan looked unsettled. "She has armies," Varys said carefully. "She has the king. She has half the realm." "She has my daughters," Ned whispered. "Not anymore." He had been a lord, a father, a hand of the king. Now he was a ghost, a shadow, a man with nothing left to lose but the satisfaction of watching the whole rotten system bleed. The plan was madness. Even Barristan said it outright. "This will burn everything. There's no clean end if we move on the queen." "There never was a clean end," Ned replied. "Not when they beheaded children, not when they lied and ruled with knives in the dark. You once believed in law." Ned met his gaze coldly. "Then law should have saved my daughters." Varys had gone quiet at first, but eventually he nodded. "We do not kill her. We make her vanish. Silence can be more terrifying than death." So they plotted. Cersei was not easy prey. She kept 3 layers of guards around her at night, 2 testers for her wine, and a food taster who had never smiled. But Ned wasn't after her in the Red Keep. He wanted her in the streets, in the dark. She had taken to weekly processions through the city, her way of showing the people their queen still ruled, despite whispers of war, always with banners, always with gold cloaks. A show, a performance. And shows had blind spots. They waited for the 3rd moon of the month, when the city celebrated a minor festival, and the streets were thick with song, incense, and wine. The queen would visit the sept of the mother, walk among the poor with her head held high, draped in golden robes and guarded by blades she no longer trusted. The trap was set in the alley behind the sept, where carts of offering grain were usually dumped before being sorted by temple workers. Varys' spies had replaced the workers. The carts were empty. Cersei passed through as expected, flanked by a dozen gold cloaks and her new sworn shield, Sir Boros Blount. It happened in seconds, a sudden bang. Firecrackers thrown from above. Bright, and harmless but loud enough to cause panic. The Goldcloaks turned their heads. The carts exploded into motion. A black horse came barreling down the alley. Barristan rode it, masked in cloth and fury. He knocked two guards aside and drew steel. Gendry, already waiting in the shadows, slammed a hammer into the third guard's knee before he could shout. Varys signalled. From the far end, Ned emerged, hooded, cloaked and cold. He made no noise, he said no words. He grabbed Cersei by the arm just as she reached for a dagger in her sleeve. Their eyes met. She recognized him, and for the first time in her life, Cersei Lannister looked truly afraid. "You!" she breathed. Ned didn't speak. He pulled her into the wagon, bound and gagged before anyone could raise a second alarm. By the time the Goldcloaks regrouped, the Queen was gone, and so was the noise. It took an hour for the Red Keep to realize what had happened. Joffrey's screams echoed down every corridor. "Bring her back! I want their heads, all of them!" Lord scrambled. The small council convened without a queen. Pycelle babbled. Tyrion stared into his wine for a long time, already realizing what this meant. "She's not dead," he muttered. "Not if they're this smart. They'll use her, for fear, for leverage, maybe even for justice." Joffrey slapped him across the face in front of the council. "She's my mother. Do you think I care about justice?" Tyrion wiped his nose calmly. "No, I think you care about power, and you just lost the only person who made your madness tolerable." The city panicked. Cersei's face appeared on posters. Coins were offered for her return. Half the Goldcloaks were pulled off patrols and sent to search every well, brothel, cellar and sewer. Nobles barricaded themselves inside their manors. Rumors flew like crows. The Queen had been stolen by sorcery. The Queen had been slain by her own son. The Queen had fled to Essos to avoid Joffrey's madness. And in a crypt far beneath the ruins of an old keep north of the city, Cersei sat chained and silent. She had tried to fight, screamed, spit, even attempted to seduce Barristan. None of it worked. Ned watched her from the corner, not with hatred, with calculation. "You destroyed everything," he said finally. She met his gaze with venom. "And I'd do it again. You were weak. You came here thinking your honor mattered. You didn't even understand the game until you'd already lost." Ned didn't argue. He stood, turned away, and left her in the dark. "She won't break," Barristan said later. "You know that." "She doesn't have to," Ned replied. "She just has to disappear." Varys, always 2 steps ahead, had already begun circulating a new rumor, that Cersei had taken ill, a contagious sickness, that she was being treated in isolation on Dragonstone under the care of maesters. Joffrey refused to believe it. He sent ships, ravens, threats. Nothing worked. Meanwhile, Sansa played her part. She mourned her missing mother. She wore black, cried for the court, accepted sympathy. But at night she listened. To which lords were loyal? Which servants whispered of betrayal? Which guards had lost their nerve? One by one she began reporting them back, using old handmaidens loyal to her mother or secret messages delivered with food to the kitchens where Varys still had ears. The realm was unraveling. The Queen was gone. The Hand was a ghost. The North was rising. Stannis had begun to march, Renly had rallied the Reach, and even Dorne had gone quiet in a way that promised violence. But Ned Stark, he sat in the dark and stared at the woman who had started it all. "I'm going to leave you alive," he said one night, "because death is too clean for people like you." Cersei sneered. "You think this changes anything?" "No," he whispered. "But it begins something." He walked away. For the first time in his life, Eddard Stark had taken the game into his hands, and the realm would never be the same. Snow fell in the north. Not the soft kind that blanketed Winterfell in childhood memories, but the bitter, wind-driven kind that cut through leather and soaked bone deep. It fell on armor, tents, and the tired faces of the Stark bannermen encamped along the Trident. Robb Stark stood outside his command tent, watching the flakes swirl like ash in a battlefield sky. His scouts had returned with news. "They say the Queen is dead," one of them muttered, "or vanished, or kidnapped, or turned into a bird, and flown off to Valyria." Robb didn't smile. "She's gone," he said. "That's all that matters." He didn't believe it was luck. He knew his father was behind it. "Send riders to the twins," he ordered. "If the Queen is gone, we press harder. Walder Frey wants a price, we'll pay it. But we take Harrenhal next. We split Tywin's. Horses, we make them bleed." But not every Northman agreed. Lord Karstark had grown distant. Ever since Jaime Lannister had been captured, the old lord had become colder, more reckless. He wanted blood, not just war, but execution, revenge without terms. "My sons are dead," he told Robb that night, "and we still sit in tents." "You will get justice. You'll get delay," Karstark spat. "Your father would have acted already." Robb bit down the anger. "My father is doing what none of us could. He's already struck at their heart. Let us finish the body." But Karstark was not convinced, and somewhere deep inside the northern host, cracks began to widen. Between vengeance and strategy, honor and wrath. Back in King's Landing, Joffrey was unraveling. With Cersei gone, his tantrums had turned savage. He lashed out at anyone within reach. Servants, courtiers, even his own council. When Pycelle offered a soothing tonic, Joffrey threw the goblet across the room and screamed that his mother had been poisoned. He threatened to hang the entire small council. He declared war on Dragonstone for harboring her. He demanded Tyrion produce her or die trying. The city shook under his madness. Tyrion watched, jaw tight. "The boy's out of control," he muttered to Bronn. "He was dangerous with a leash. Now he's a wildfire with a crown." "You want me to put him down?" Bronn offered, half serious. "No," Tyrion said, "but we need to tighten the leash again, quietly, before someone else does it first." He began building his own circle. Loyal guards, quiet servants, old debts from his days at the Eyrie. He knew something was moving beneath the city, and he didn't trust Varys or his silence. Varys, meanwhile, sat in shadow with Ned and Barristan. The three of them huddled in the depths of a collapsed ruin-turned haven. "We can't keep her here forever," Varys warned. "Sooner or later, someone will smell the rot." "She's not meant to be kept forever," Ned replied. "Just long enough." "For what?" Ned unrolled a piece of parchment. Names, symbols, locations. The rest of her web. "I want it all gone, before she resurfaces." "You mean to release her?" Barristan asked, incredulous. Ned didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night he visited Cersei again. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her cheeks had sunken, her hair matted, but her eyes burned with the same fire that had ruined kingdoms. "You still think you're in control," she spat, "but you've just given me a crown of martyrdom. The moment I'm seen, the realm will rally to me." "You were never their queen," Ned said. "You were just the loudest whisper in the room." He turned to go. "I'll tell them all," she hissed behind him. "About Jon Snow, about your lies, about your bastard with Targaryen blood." He froze. Slowly, he turned back. "That's your last card, isn't it?" he said coldly. "Your last secret, and it won't save you. You think the realm will follow you, follow Robb, when they learn what you've hidden?" Ned stared at her for a long time. Then he walked away without another word, but her voice followed him like smoke. In the shadows, Varys waited. "She knows." "She's bluffing," Barristan offered. "No," Ned said. "She knows enough." And that changed everything. If word of Jon's parentage spread, if even whispers made it beyond these walls, it could destroy not only Ned's family, but the fragile threads holding the North together. Robb's crown, Sansa's safety, everything. Varys leaned in. "You Have a choice now. Keep her hidden forever or end the risk. You mean kill her? I mean end the threat, Varys said. You've come this far. But that was the problem. Ned had come too far. He had kidnapped a queen, poisoned the realm, burned bridges, betrayed every principle that once defined him. And now he stood at the edge of something even darker. Kill a prisoner, kill a woman, kill the mother of the king. He went to the rooftop of the old tower that night, standing alone under a sky thick with storm clouds. He didn't pray. He hadn't prayed in weeks. But he thought of his children. Sansa, inside the lion's den. Arya, still missing in the maze of King's Landing. Robb, marching into a war that could drown them all. And Jon, who had never asked for any of it. The bastard with royal blood. The boy who could shatter the game if the wrong mouth whispered at the wrong time. Ned clenched his fists. If I kill her, he murmured to the wind, I become what I swore to fight. But if he didn't, he risked all their lives. In the morning, he would make his decision, and whatever it was, there would be no return. Ned Stark didn't sleep. He paced the cold stone chamber where the torchlight flickered and the shadows never moved far. Below, Cersei Lannister lay chained, still alive, still dangerous. Her words haunted him, not because they were lies, but because they were truths with teeth. Jon Snow, the truth. The one secret he'd buried deeper than anybody. She had seen it somehow. Maybe through Littlefinger's games, maybe just because. She was born to sniff out weakness. Either way, if that secret reached the ears of the wrong men, it wouldn't be crowns they lost. It would be heads. By dawn, he made his decision. Barristan stood beside him when he gave the order. We move. Huh? Ned said. Barristan didn't ask why. He didn't ask where. They blindfolded her, gagged her, and slipped her from the ruins at nightfall. A small ship waited in Blackwater Bay, a smuggler's vessel under no sigil, no house, no allegiance. Varys had bought silence with a heavy purse and heavier threats. You're not killing her? Barristan asked once more, not out of judgment, but curiosity. No, Ned said, that's not justice, it's mercy. He had come close, God's help him. He had come close to putting a blade through her throat. But in the end, he remembered his brother Brandon's scream, choking on fire in the Mad King's trap. He remembered Lyanna dying with blood on her thighs. He remembered that vengeance didn't end pain, it only passed it on. So Cersei would not die. She would vanish. She would live in a prison of isolation, exiled to a crumbling fortress off the western coast, guarded by men who owed Ned their lives. She would be forgotten, and she would hate it. I want her alive, but voiceless, Ned told the captain. No letters, no visits, no second chances. The ship slipped into the mist before dawn, and with it Ned Stark made peace with the worst version of himself and let it drift away on the tide. But peace was fleeting, because that same morning Varys brought news that shattered everything. Arya is gone. Ned froze. Gone. Taken or killed. We don't know. There was an ambush on the Black Cells. Someone was trying to rescue prisoners during a diversion. She was spotted in the chaos. Then nothing. Ned felt the old panic rise, hotter than wildfire, colder than snow. Arya had been moving through the city in secret, aided by a faceless network of loyalists, bravosi, beggars, a few old soldiers who remembered her from Winterfell's courtyards. He had planned to reach her after Cersei was dealt with, but someone had gotten to her first. The trail leads to the docks, Varys continued, and to one name. He handed Ned a coin, a black iron coin, a coin from Braavos. A faceless man, Varys said, the same kind your daughter trained under. I suspect she may have chosen her own path, or she's been claimed by theirs. Ned clenched the coin so tightly it dug into his palm. Blood trickled between his fingers. He thought he had bought time. He thought he was slowly undoing a knot, but the realm was unraveling faster than he could pull the thread. Elsewhere, war had ignited. Robb Stark took Harrenhal after a brutal siege, only to find it empty. Tywin Lannister had pulled back, regrouping toward King's Landing, and left traps behind. Disease, sabotage, poisoned wells. At the Twins, Frey demands grew. Walder Frey knew Catelyn was still alive, hidden in River Run, and he knew Robb's heart was split between battle and blood. "You want my bridge? Marry one of my daughters," the old toad had said. Robb didn't answer, not yet. In the Vale, whispers of Sansa's survival reached Lysa Arryn. She sent a raven, cryptic, cold. "If the wolf lives, the falcon watches." Even the Iron Islands stirred. Balon Greyjoy, smelling the chaos, sent out longships, not in full rebellion yet, but enough to test the North's defences while its men marched south. And on Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon had lit the Seven aflame. He declared himself the one true king. He named his brother Renly a usurper, and when he heard that Queen Cersei had vanished, he saw opportunity like a sword drawn. "The Lannisters are bleeding," he told Melisandre. "Now we strike." Back in King's Landing, Tyrion fought to hold what remained. "I need allies," he told Bronn. "Real ones, not whispers." "Who?" Bronn asked. "The wolves want your head. The dragons aren't here. The roses follow Renly. Who's left?" Tyrion looked at a map of the Stormlands. Maybe the one man too stubborn to stay dead. And in a cellar beneath the sept of Baelor, a secret council gathered. Ned Stark, Varys, Barristan Selmy. 2 northern scouts returned from River Run. A healer who had tended to Arya's wounds. Gendry, and a man in shadows who had once worn the black. They formed the beginning of something new, not a rebellion, not quite a kingdom, but a reckoning. "The game has changed," Ned told them. "The old powers are crumbling, the throne is splintered, and if we don't shape what comes next, someone worse will." "What do you want to build?" Gendry asked. Ned didn't have the answer yet. He only knew what he wanted to destroy. The raven came with a single word. "March." Robb Stark didn't hesitate. With Harrenhal taken and Tywin's army pulling south toward King's Landing, the moment had come. The young wolf rode beneath the howling banners of the north, past the Red Fork, through burned villages and bloodied fields. Every sword followed him, not just for revenge now, but for a father they believed was long dead, who had become something more than just a man. They called him the Ghost Wolf, the North remembered. In King's Landing the air was wrong. The sky felt heavy. The walls trembled, not from siege but from rot. Joffrey raged behind locked doors, demanding blood, threatening even his uncle now. Tyrion held the city by a thread, buying food with coin he didn't have, and bribing mercenaries with promises he couldn't keep. "What happens when Robb arrives?" Bronn asked him on the walls. Tyrion sipped his wine. "Either the gates open or the city burns." "And if you had to choose?" Tyrion didn't answer. Beneath the city, in an abandoned tomb sealed with broken stone and black cloth, Ned Stark stood with his final war council. "Robb will be here in days," he said, "but we strike first." Barristan leaned in. "You mean to open the gates?" "I mean to break them." He turned to Gendry. "The forges are ready?" "Aye, the wildfire stores are set." "The gold cloaks watching them, loyal or paid?" Ned looked to Varys. "The bells?" "At the first bell the rumour spreads, the king is dead. At the second bell we kill the power at the Red Keep. At the third, the wolf walks in." Ned had spent weeks preparing this, not with armies, but with shadows, whispered commands, coin passed in brothels, messages etched into bread crust and stuffed into sewer tunnels. Dozens of key points, guard posts, supply holds, water lines, weapon caches, were now manned by men who didn't wear banners. On the night before the assault, Sansa met him one final time in the crypt beneath the sept. She had changed so much. Her face thinner, her voice steadier, her eyes cold. "You're not the man I remember," she said. "And you're not the little girl I lost," he replied. She gave him a small cloth pouch. Inside were keys. Joffrey's chamber, the servant, roots, and something he doesn't know I know. What? The back stairs to the throne room. He took her hand. "You did more than survive, Sansa. You helped end this." She didn't smile. "Then let's end it." When the bells rang the next morning, chaos bloomed like wildfire. The first bell, King Joffrey was dead, poisoned by his own cupbearer. A rumor, a lie, but it travelled like truth. The second bell, the guards at the Red Keep found their torches snuffed, their barracks sealed, their commanders vanished. And then the third bell rang. The wolves walked in. Ned Stark led them through the tunnels. Gendry smashed through locked doors. Barristan took the steps 2 at a time, sword drawn, as gold cloaks abandoned their posts or surrendered outright. In the throne room, Tyrion stood alone. He'd sent Joffrey away, drugged and bound, locked in a cell in the Tower of the Hand, not out of mercy, but because he knew the boy king's rule was finished. "You're early," Tyrion said when Ned appeared. "You're late," Ned replied. Tyrion gestured to the Iron Throne. "It's empty. I'm not here to sit on it." "Then who?" Ned didn't answer. Behind him, Robb arrived, storming the Red Keep with the northern host. Grey wind howled through the halls. The Stark banners unfurled above the gates of the capital. The Lannister reign was over. 3 days later, the council met. The lords gathered, Stark, Tully, Arryn, even Martell envoys from Dorne. The Reach had fractured after Renly's disappearance. The Stormlands burned by Stannis' zealotry, and the Crownlands were silent. The Iron Throne still stood, but no one sat on it. Ned spoke first. "There is no king," he said. "Only war, only silence, only power taken by those willing to burn the world." "So what do we do?" asked Lord Royce of the Vale. "We don't choose a king," Ned said. "We choose peace." Robb stepped forward. "I will not be crowned again." Gasps, murmurs. Robb raised his hand. "I was a boy made king by grief, and I led good men to die for it. But I will rule the North, not with a crown, with law, with loyalty, with truth." Then came Sansa. She stepped forward before the lords of the realm. "The South can burn in its own politics, but the North will not kneel again, and neither will I." "You seek to rule?" someone asked, half mocking. She stared them down. "I seek to lead, because no one else can do it without blood." That night, Ned stood alone at the base of the Iron Throne. He looked up at it, and for the first time didn't feel anger, just pity. The blades, the lies, the power. It had never been worth it. He reached out, then pulled his hand back. He turned and walked away. The next morning, the Iron Throne was found melted, destroyed in the night, reduced to a scorched heap of twisted steel. No one knew who had done it. No one claimed it. But across Westeros, a new story began. The North remained free. The South fractured into uneasy peace. Sansa ruled Winterfell with fire and frost. Robb rebuilt what war had broken. Arya never returned, but her name was whispered in Essos and in fear by slavers. And Ned Stark, he vanished once more. Some said he returned to Winterfell. Others said he lived in the Dreadfort ruins, punishing those who preyed on the weak. Some said he walked the King's Road, alone, protecting travellers from shadows. But all agreed on one thing. He had survived the game, and he had broken it.